Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into a fascinating question. Why haven't gold Rolex prices followed the surge in gold prices? Let's take a look at what the data actually tells us by looking at references from multiple generations and model families to see if we can't find the answer to this question. As of May 1st, gold prices have risen sharply, up 7% over the past month, 21% over the past 6 months, and an incredible 43% over the past year. But here's the surprising part. That massive increase hasn't translated into similar gains for most gold Rolex watches. In fact, out of the 246 solid gold references in our database, only 3 have appreciated more than 20% over the past 6 months. And in fact, only one of these has gained more than 40%, the Cellini 6623. However, these may be surprising to mention because collectively all 3 references saw around 200 sales in the last year. So not only are they not that popular, their performance is therefore also not that reflective of broader market trends. Now, the only Rolex collection that is made entirely in precious metals is the day date. So naturally, we looked at whether day dates track with gold prices. And spoiler alert, they don't. Our day date index, which is composed of the top 30 models within the brand, sorted and weighted by transaction value, has actually declined over the past year by nearly a couple of percentage points. A quick caveat, about 13% of this index by weight is platinum references, while the rest are yellow, rose, and white gold. So it's not precisely an apples to apples comparison, but the performance doesn't vary significantly between the precious metals. So the overall point remains. You can check out the full list of references in the index on our website if you're interested in looking at the specifics. But for now, let's look at some precious metal examples. So first up, we'll look at the reference 228238. This is the current production day date 40 in yellow gold, and it's been in production since 2015. It's popular. We tracked about 1,200 sales for this in the past year. And over that time, its price has increased by just under $2,000 or about 5% of the market price. That actually outperforms our overall market index. It outperforms the Rolex index, as well as outperforming the Rolex day date index. All 3 of those indexes actually over the last year are down. And notably, the retail price for this watch, because it is still in production, actually just went up on May 1st from $43,000 to $44,200, likely in response to the US tariffs. Let's look at the reference 228235, which is the same day date 40, but in Everose gold. It's also been in production since 2015, and we've tracked about 1,300 sales for this one over the past year. So it's a little bit more popular in terms of transaction volume than the yellow gold version. And the price is flat to very slightly down in the last year. And, both watches contain roughly the same amount of gold. They're both 18 carats, and they're the same size, and yet one appreciated and one didn't. So this seems to suggest that gold value might not be a major factor for most day date buyers, at least just in the case of these 2 examples. I think it's useful maybe to pause here for a second and just talk briefly about the gold content in modern Rolex watches with some back of the envelope math real quick. So all modern gold Rolex watches are made with 18 karat gold, which is essentially 75% pure gold, and then the remaining 25% is, other metals that vary depending on the color and hardness characteristics that you're trying to achieve. Most estimates say that there's somewhere between 125 to 175 grams of 18 karat gold in a gold Rolex, depending on how many links there are, and the size. It's 36 millimeters or 40 millimeters and so on. So let's say, at the higher end, let's say it has 175 grams of 18 karat gold. That's about 133 grams of pure gold. And so at a gold price of $105 per gram, that's roughly, around $14,000 worth of gold in the watch. So about 1/3 of both its retail and secondary market value. The takeaway there is basically that the proportion of the price of the watch that you are paying that is purely the value of the gold of the watch is about 1/3 of that total price you're paying. Now let's look at a slightly older model, the date 836 reference 118238. It's the predecessor to the current generation 128238, and it was produced for about a couple decades from 2000 to 2019. And despite the surge in gold prices, the market price for this watch has actually dropped over the past year. This one is, roughly about 100 grams of pure gold, so approximately a $10,500 melt value. So that's roughly half of the market price for this reference. Again, suggesting resale value is not really being driven here by the gold content. But these were just day dates. Let's move to the GMT Master family and see what the numbers look like on that side. Within the GMT Master collection, we'll look at the 126719 BLRO, which is the white gold one, the Pepsi bezel, and then the 126710 BLRO, which is just the Pepsi in stainless steel with a black dial. The white gold version over the last year has declined in market price by about 6.5%. The steel version has dropped by about 4%. So the white gold model here is actually not just declining against the backdrop of surging gold prices, but it's actually underperformed even its steel comp, the most directly sort of comparable steel reference. And then both of those have underperformed the GMT Master Index as well as the Rolex Index. So having looked at sort of, done a rundown of all of the data, where does it leave us? Just to recap, gold prices have surged, but most gold Rolex watches have not followed in their market prices. So what this seems to suggest is the melt value does not significantly influence market pricing for Rolex watches, at least not for most buyers. In the end, talking about a gold Rolex, I think the more operative part of that phrase is the word Rolex than the word gold. So buyers seem to be paying for the name on the watch rather than the material that it's made out of. So the next question that then might beg is, are gold Rolex watches undervalued right now? The answer to that is a little bit more complicated, I think, because it really depends on what kind of buyer you are. If you care about melt value or price floors, you might see more value in a gold Rolex today than a year ago, because previously, if let's say a gold Rolex, a third of its value was the melt value, now it's up to a half, then you're getting more gold for your money, so to speak. But if you think the melt value is irrelevant, then gold's rise hasn't changed your perception at all. And in fact, the market prices for these watches have either stayed steady or have slightly declined in the last year. And so in that sense as well, they continue to represent decent values. In fact, you could almost argue that if you think of it in terms of the value of watchmaking on offer plus the value of the gold that you are buying, the increase in the value of the gold in the proportionally in the price of the watch that you're paying means that if, let's say, previously you were paying for a day-date mechanism watch, the cost of paying for that day-date mechanism watch is now less than it used to be. But yeah, that's kind of our take on it. Let us know in the comments what you think. Would you agree that Rolex gold references are undervalued right now? And do you even care about the gold content of a luxury watch to begin with? I'll sort of end with just reminding viewers that the data in this video comes from WatchCharts.com, the world's most powerful watch market research platform. Please visit our website to understand high-level watch market trends, get up-to-date pricing on now over 27,000 watches, and track the value of your collection. Also, if you're interested in buying and selling among fellow collectors, then we invite you to visit the WatchCharts marketplace at marketplace.watchcharts.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.